of the weirder mysteries of the Kamala Harris campaign was what the hell happened to Tim Walz. So he came out of the gates hot, was turning his cable news campaign, his stellar Minnesota record, into a vice presidential slot. He honestly seemed like the perfect choice. He's an affable Midwesterner, history of electoral outperformance. He translated a down-to-earth vibe into an incredible record in a purple state. In fact, with his selection for the ticket, it seemed like Kamala was eschewing her previous cautious positioning. To go bold with a character who resonated on TV, it did not shy away from using power. Walz had a natural talent for pitching progressive policies in a way that felt moderate and characterized Trump and Vance in a way that went instantly viral. These guys, they're just weird.
You know there's something wrong with people when they talk about freedom, freedom to be in your bedroom, freedom to be in your exam room, freedom to tell your kids what they can read. That stuff is weird. They come across weird. They seem obsessed with this. They continue to try and tell you. And look, the thing that I find the most weird about it is they never do the things they say. I heard one time very early on, you do not need your elected officials to give you a sermon, but they should try and live one. And these guys are weird on how they frame it. They are obsessed. And I said it the other day, the He-Man Woman Haters Club. I don't know where this is coming from. And I'll have to tell you today here in Minnesota, joyous day. I just appointed our newest Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Sarah Hennessy. Minnesota was the first state, and we have a majority women on the Supreme Court, and we have a woman of color as the Chief Justice. That scares the hell out of these guys. That just terrifies them. And then they start being weird. They think they have to listen to their stories. They think they're connecting with people, and they tell things, and everybody feels uncomfortable around them. So I'm sticking with that because I don't know what else describes it, but I know that it's more cynical and it's deeper and it's hurtful and hateful. But I think one of the things you point out to this, they're not offering us anything. They're not going to come with a plan. And this is my thing every day. I ask, where's your health care plan? So yeah, they're weird. And I am not changing that.
But of course, he did not ultimately stick with that. After what was a phenomenal launch, she quickly became a massive draw on the campaign trail, and the Harris campaign looked like they were set to use Walz's Minnesota record as a way to fill in the gaps on Kamala's own ideological vagueness. They released even a solid proposal to go after price gougers, which caused a glorious right-wing meltdown about supposed price controls. Walz suggested himself a focus on bread and butter issues, things like paid leave, which have been really popular in Minnesota. He leaned into J.D. Vance mockery, even made some couch jokes down on the campaign trail. But then sometime around the DNC, things really seemed to flip. Price gouging was out, opportunity economy was in. Weird was out, fascist was in, and Shawn Fain, head of the UAW, was out. Liz Cheney neocon was in. Now, Politico has revealed what many of us have long suspected. Tim Walz was sabotaged by an insecure Kamala Harris who didn't want him to outshine her, and by dim-witted, arrogant consultants who thought they knew better about what would resonate than the organic response which had originally greeted Tim Walz and his framing of the race. So, according to Politico, quote, after he was selected in early August, Harris was not yet doing interviews, and aides did not want Walz to get out ahead of her, several former campaign aides said. Harris and Walz would not appear together for their joint interview with CNN until 3 weeks later. Even into October, the Washington Post described him as a, quote, surprisingly bubble-wrapped campaigner. And as for his signature framing of Republicans as weird, quote, there were also efforts to curb some of his signature lines, including casting Trump and Republicans as weird, which slipped out of Walz's speeches. Quote, he was encouraged to stop focusing on the weird criticism, said another former Harris aide. I think it is fair to ask whether, even if weird wasn't quite right, his instinct about how to approach Trump to make him seem small and a huckster wasn't closer to correct than the more self-serious tone that may have made us sound too in defense of the status quo. Now, in an interview with Politico himself, Walz slams the play it safe tactics, which led them to position the campaign as if they were sitting on a big lead rather than desperately trying to pull off an upset. Quote, we shouldn't have been playing this thing so safe. I think we probably should have just rolled the dice and done the town halls where voters may say, you're full of shit, I don't believe in you, Walz continued. I think there could have been more of that. We, as a party, are more cautious and engage in the media, both mainstream and non-traditional, Walz said. And during the 2024 campaign, he said, in football parlance, we were in a prevent defense to not lose when we never had anything to lose because I don't think we were ever ahead. Now, one thing you can say about Trump is he is happy to tell campaign consultants and other advisors to piss off. If he tests a line out on the campaign trail and it gets a big response, he goes with it. He's got a gut instinct about these things, yes, but he also buys much more into the wisdom of the crowd than what some focus group poll-tested suit tells him he should be saying. Walz actually had a similar approach. He didn't just invent weird for the Kamala campaign. He had done a bunch of town halls. He talked to voters all around Minnesota. And that was the Trump characterization that he found really worked. So he brought it to the national stage and it immediately hit. Bernie actually has a similar approach. He's not out there checking his lines over with a pollster. He's getting rock star receptions, leaning into the same message that has resonated with Americans he's spoken with for over 50 years. Now, it helps that they both seem like they actually believe in something too. There's new data that should further strengthen Democrats' resolve to get rid of all of these arrogant, grifting, idiotic consultants who think that they know better. A recent Yale study found they literally don't. Random people do just as well predicting what political messages will resonate as do paid political professionals. These people, they are literally worthless. You would be just as well off to throw darts at a dartboard and pick your policies as to listen to these people. Now, there are signs that Walz remains one of the Democratic Party leaders with the best instincts in the country. In a recent interview with Molly Young-Fast, he told her that Democrats need to stop messing around with small ball and actually give voters real change they can sink their teeth into. Take a listen.
Look, I hear the thing out there is that when we get back, which we'll fight, I'll tell you what people are going to expect is they're not going to expect us to tinkle around the edge with the ACA. They're going to expect universal health care. And if there's a lesson here, I always said this, we had a 1-vote majority in Minnesota when we moved clean energy, we moved reproductive rights, we moved a whole slew of progressive, very popular, including things around guns and gun safety, very popular things. We moved it with a 1-vote majority. And people ask, well, what do you call a 1-vote majority? A majority, simple as that.
Now, if you need a demonstration of how popular that message is, how much energy there is behind it, just behold the response to an 83-year-old Bernie Sanders, who's been hosting overflow crowds on top of overflow crowds in Midwestern swing districts. It's actually insane. Biden's average crowd, as pointed out here, when he was president and running for re-election, was 1,300. Here is Bernie in Warren, Michigan on a random March day, attracting more than 10,000 people. Now, as far as his 2028 plans goes, Walz is playing coy, keeping his options open. I think opening up about the Harris campaign's failures, albeit in a diplomatic way, is definitely step one. Getting back out there on the road for town halls in districts where Republicans are too scared to show up is step two. And then we'll see. My man definitely does need to work on his debate skills, but if he ditches the consultants, leans into his instincts to be visible and to be bold with his economic agenda, he might still yet be the future of the Democratic Party. And I mean, this is the big thing for him, is people are going to be terrified.
Hey guys, if you want to see what I had to say to Krystal's monologue, not just this one, all of them, going back to the very beginning, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com.